Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Laura Sawyier with me. How you doing, Laura?
Wonderful. Thank
We're laughing
you.
because of the talk we had just right before this. Those wondering why we're laughing at a simple name exchange.
Because I have an I in my last name, and
yes.
it's spelled Sawyer. It sounds like Sawyer.
So Laura Sawyier is here. You are a style consultant. You're a speaker. Your TED Talk is going to be coming out at someday in the future here. We're excited about that. Founder and CEO of LKS Style and Consulting. Getting your master's from Harvard in psychology. You have other events that you put on. I mean, you're doing a lot of stuff. I was introduced to you by a mutual friend of ours, Kristen Johnson. We'll give her a shout out and say thanks to Kristen for the introduction. And we are here. But before I get started with all my questions, I always like to start with what made you the woman you are today?
Oh, what made me the woman I am today? Challenges. I grew up in a high functioning yet, challenging dynamic as a kid, and don't have a relationship with either of my parents. And, on the surface, everything looked happy and maybe perfect to a certain degree, but there was a lot of struggle underneath those layers, and it taught me a lot about being incredibly resilient.
Wow.
So I'm a resilient person.
Yeah. Is it what brought you here to St. Louis? Because you
Love.
grew up on the, okay.
We go from challenges to love.
Yeah.
Love brought me to St. Louis. My husband, Mark, we both are entrepreneurs. He came here 20 years ago to go to WashU. He and I are both from New York originally. He grew up in the city. I grew up just outside of New York City in southern New York State. And he launched a business as an undergrad and, recognized that there was an amazing business community in the region and decided that he wanted to stay. And he was just home visiting 11 years ago. Recently, we met on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
And we fell in love. And he was like, surprise, I live in St. Louis, not New York.
Like, oh, crap.
9 months later, very much in love, I moved to St. Louis. And I've been here now for over 10 years.
Oh, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's a good community. It really is.
It
good
is.
community. So again, you are a style consultant, speaker, founder, and CEO. Lots of stuff to talk about. But I told you jokingly earlier, but I was nervous today because I didn't even know what to wear. When you're going to meet with a style consultant, I'm like, what do I wear today? So I decided to go with basically the all black. So hopefully it works.
We both got the memo. We didn't even talk about this, but we both showed up in all black.
So
I hear it all the time, though, so nothing to be nervous about.
So I'm not the only one that was nervous? Okay,
very
that's
normal.
good. That's good. I'm going to ask you this question, kind of a very open-ended question, just like the first one was. But what is style? How do you define style doing what you do?
Sure. Style, first of all, is not the same thing as fashion, and I think that those words often get, used interchangeably. Yeah. Style is really about who you are at your core. And what that means is it not only represents the clothing and the things that we adorn our bodies with, it's how we style our hair, it's if we wear glasses, it's our beauty and grooming habits. And style ultimately is communicating your personal, gender, cultural, religious beliefs, and coupling all of those elements I just said before together and helping you show up in a way where you are articulating who you are confidently while also knowing how to read the room that you're walking into.
Unbelievable. So is that an opinion, or is that like science? Would science say there's a style definition, or would they?
That's a great question. I think that the answer to that question is probably still being carved out from a scientific perspective, because the field of the applied psychology of fashion and style is a fairly young field within the last 15 years, which is what I'm studying in my program at Harvard. At the same time, there's a definition of what style is. And, we see it from an industry perspective. We see it from a behavioral perspective. So it really is a combination of all these things. So it's both.
That's all right. So what's changed since COVID? So there's obviously the pre-COVID. We talked about this. So
through the lens of style?
Yeah. I mean, it's
a lot.
Different, right?
A lot has changed. We're seeing, first of all, let me just back up and say with COVID, I think it taught a lot of people the things that I was trying to teach them before COVID. And, not to be insensitive, but to a degree, it was like a silver lining for a lot of people to realize, whoa, I actually don't want to spend every day in sweatpants. I actually need to get up and I need to brush my hair and I need to brush my teeth and I need to put clothes on that fit my body, that I feel good in them, whether or not I'm leaving the house. I wrote an article in 2020 early on in March imploring people to get out of their pajamas. not for the sake of denying comfort, right?
Yeah.
We all want to be comfortable, but to establish delineation in our day. And there is science associated with this from a neuroscience perspective, where when we create different elements where we're putting an end and a start to certain aspects of our day, it can actually help us function better. And some science supports this in saying that it can actually help us be more effective and happier as we move through our days. So that's
funny.
Legit.
It's funny you say that. I remember during COVID, I would literally still put on a nice dress shirt and a pair of pants, and
Sure.
it may not even have shoes and socks on or whatever, right? You're at home. But
Right.
it's like, but it did. It made me feel more confident. It made me feel better. And then I could go upstairs and put the sweatpants on later, right?
Right.
So,
I mean, I do work. Admittedly, I work from home on certain days. My business is, headquartered out of my house. And on days where I'm strictly at my computer, I've got a nice sweater on top, and I have no shame with putting on like a nice pair of leggings.
Yeah,
I'm in
absolutely.
my Birkenstocks. So,
you're still feeling
I'm
good.
only zooming from midsection up. I am feeling good. And I'll say lastly to that point too, from a change perspective, people realize ultimately that we need to take good care of ourselves so that we can be happy and live healthy and all these things. And sometimes we're exhausted and we don't want to make the effort, but the value emphasis is put on being intentional with how you show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there psychology behind that? Like from a standpoint of, and this is going to be stupid, but I was just on a guy's golf trip. There were 16 of us. And this is me being very vulnerable here, and I'm going to get help from my buddies. But like, we had really ugly golf shirts given to us by our team captain. Okay, Pete's his name. Pete maybe hear this. And I joked with the guys, and I said, look, part of going to the golf course is looking and feeling good too. And now I feel like crap in this ugly golf shirt. Thankfully, it ended up being a little chilly, so I got to wear like my little hoodie golf sweatshirt thing, and so I didn't have to wear the golf shirt. But is there science behind that like
Yes.
how you show up and how you feel can change how you play, and whether it's a sport or at work?
All of it. So in 2012, a study was conducted by 2 psychologists, resulting in this phenomenon called enclothed cognition. I say that slowly because it's a bit of a mouthful, and as technical as it sounds, it's something that I think all of us can relate to, even Pete and the guys on your golfing trip. Right, Pete?
Yes.
All right. Listen, Pete. No. So
listen up, dude, for next year.
So what happens with enclothed cognition is it's representing 2 things. One is it's how we feel when we put an article on our body. And the second thing is the symbolic meaning of the article that we put on our body. So you wanted to go onto the golf course, show up, feel good about how you were going to play. And you had something on that just like didn't work for you. And I don't know what color it was or how well-fitting or ill-fitting potentially this item was. But you realized that this wasn't going to work for you. Okay. Well, some people, that's a vibe. But it just wasn't working for you. Yeah. And so you can apply that for a lot of people where, let's say someone puts something on in the morning, they're not feeling great about their body, they're tired, they're in a rush, they've got to get the kids out the door, the dog, whatever. They've got a big meeting later in the day, and all of a sudden they've got these pants on that are their favorite pants, but maybe they're a little too tight. They're not able now to fully focus on the meeting that they're presenting at hand. This is real stuff. And so you can apply it to the golf course, you can apply it to the boardroom, you can apply it to going out with your friends on a Friday night, and all the things in between. If you're not feeling good and like your best self in what you're wearing, it will absolutely influence how you feel about yourself and how you're engaging with people around you.
How do you help those people then? What are we doing? What should we be looking for? How do you find your style?
Sure.
I think back to my early days of being a young financial advisor, and I did what the quote unquote older guys, right? They're now my age now, but the older guys, I would just wear kind of what they wore. And I went down this slippery slope of I had to have this certain kind of shoe or this belt, and it wasn't me, right? It didn't feel right. I'm like walking around acting like you're Johnny Cool Guy because you got this pair of certain shoes on, but I'm like, that's not who I am, right? So eventually you grow into that, I think. But what advice would you have for the man or woman dealing with that at work or who they are right now?
Sure. I'm going to pinpoint, because I feel like you're asking a few questions, which I appreciate. I'm going to laser in on the advice that I would give. And I think what COVID has allowed us to do and explore more in our workplaces, you're the leader of an organization, you set the tone, but understanding that we increasingly have dynamic workforces. I think, what is it, like 5 generations exist, coexist and work together in the workplace, today. And so people are going to show up based on their different experiences, different expectations. And now you've added on the challenge of coming out of COVID and working in very dynamic work settings and workplaces. And it's not consistent. And this idea of, dress for the job you want or dress for the leaders ahead of you, used to be, a very straightforward, easy way for people to feel like they could fit into the in-group dynamic in an organization. If I do this, I can sacrifice part of myself potentially so that I can continue to be successful and to, work up whatever that ladder is for me and what I want success to look like. Yeah. We now are realizing that's not necessarily working. However, what we want to be careful with is that we're not swinging too far one end to the other end of the pendulum with this, right? Because if people get too comfortable, then, they maybe, this is a generalization here, so just take this with a grain of salt, but if you're dressing super, super casual and you're not putting effort into, maybe your clothes aren't clean or you don't care and you look sloppy, things aren't ironed, that can not help you. That can really hinder you in a workplace setting. At the same time, if you try to dress like everybody else and all of a sudden you start to lose yourself, then how effective are you actually being? So that's where I'm really excited about the intersection of all of this in my research, in my work, in my studies, in my consulting, is there's a lot of room right now to go in and understand what is the dynamic of an organization, what is the workplace culture like, and how can we effectively help people based on what the makeup of this is. Because I speak at organizations like MasterCard. I'm getting ready to speak, maybe by the time this is coming out, I'll be at World Wide Technology. And, these places have different expectations on how they want to paint a picture for how they encourage people to show up. And they recognize that the rules of the past, in addition to some other expectations around telling people, where they need to be and when, is a challenging thing right now. Mm-hmm. And so there is opportunity to begin to meet each other more in the middle. There's not a perfect coupling by any means. And when you get a lot of people in a room together, in a building together, there's bound to be challenges. But I would say, to really answer that question that you're asking, is what to tell young people is, understand the makeup of the rooms that you're walking into and know what you want to get out of those rooms. And represent who you are, but also meet the moment as well. Yeah, it's not one or the other.
Respect that meeting too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you think you have to be the best dressed person in the room?
No, in fact, a lot of people that I work with who are extraordinary leaders, actually in our community, don't want to be the number one best dressed person in the room. A lot of people are like, just put me in the top 20% and I'm happy. I don't need all eyeballs on me because maybe that person has all eyeballs on them for other reasons. But most of the time, everybody that I work with and that I know just wants to feel good and they want to feel right and they want to fit like themselves. Again, to this point of how do I read the room and I don't need to just blow it out of the water.
Yeah. It's funny as I think I'm going to a conference tomorrow for the next 4 days in Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't even think the conference knows exactly what the dress code is. They're like, leave the tux at home, but your dressy jeans are okay, but it's
what
business
conference
casual.
Are you going to in
it's
a tux?
An investment. Yeah, exactly, right? And it's like, now I have no idea what you told me to do, right? So I'm like, I'm packing like different things just to figure it out. But then at the same time, though, I'm kind of like, you know what? This is a conference. I don't really care. I'm going to go as me. And if people didn't like me for that, then I don't want to be around that person anyway.
Totally. And I think, you have earned a level of respect. You are the leader of an organization. There are things that come with that. I think if there was a 25-year-old, to walk into the same setting, maybe the mindset would be a little bit different. I would actually encourage it to be a little bit different because the reality is that we live in a very visual society. And for those of us who can see, we are looking around and we are absorbing as much information as possible and as quickly as possible. And that is both a detriment and of assistance to us. I mean, at the foundational level, from a human perspective, like it's protecting us, right? And so we are also now looking for commonalities with people. That's how we connect with each other. And we can do that through what we're wearing, how we're showing up. So, we can go down one rabbit hole in terms of like, what does it mean to signal to people that you don't care? And there are definitely leaders, in big industries that make those choices. The most obvious one is Steve Jobs, of course, where he chose to wear jeans, sneakers, and a black turtleneck every day. But he did that intentionally. I am not in Steve Jobs. I wasn't in his head. I don't know, what his thoughts were, but I can guarantee you that he did that not just to make life easier and to reduce decision fatigue at home, but he did that to signal to people that like he was there to do business and he was going to show up consistently in it. So, there are a lot of ways to answer that question, but what do you wear to a conference? Something that you're comfortable in for sure.
Yeah.
Some good shoes.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. So you were a competitive downhill skier as a child. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Sure. And what was some of the best moments of that? And then we'll start with that. So talk to us about that, to be a competitive downhill skier. What was that like?
Well, when I was 2 years old, my parents put me on skis. They grew up in Alabama. They did not grow up skiing. I grew up in southern New York State. And I think I'm grateful that this was a priority of theirs. They were like, we're going to teach our kids how to ski. We like to ski. It's a really great thing to do. And to this day, it is my absolute favorite thing. It's like you're flying, in the mountains. It's beautiful. You're outside. You're gliding on snow. It's technical. It's fun. And so I will say I grew up in the Northeast, so I learned how to ski on ice. So when my friends and I go skiing out west and in places where it's more, powder skiing, they're like, come on. And I'm like, not for me. And they're like, you're not a real skier. And I'm like, maybe you're not a real skier.
Exactly.
I'm going to get in trouble on that one. No. But, when I was in 8th grade, I have 2 older brothers, and they're very competitive. I am a very competitive person by nature, and it only, increased that desire in me because I had my brothers who were older sort of setting a tone and pushing me. And I remember I was skiing that day in 8th grade, and they had practice on the mountain, and the coach saw me, I guess, go by and was like, who is that? Does anyone know who that is? And this was a small community mountain. And my brothers were like, oh, that's our sister Laura. And they were like, next time she's up at the top of the hill, like, let's have her run some gates and see what happens. And so that really set me up to start to do downhill skiing. And I was a slalom and giant slalom skier. Oh, wow. I did not ski into college. Everybody asked me that question too, but to sort of point to the start of our conversation, there were other things going on in life that just sort of prevent you from moving forward in certain things as a young person. And they were 5 amazing years, and they taught me an extraordinary amount of just self-awareness. And now, thankfully, as an entrepreneur, 7 years in, it's only taught me, and continues to teach me a ton of lessons.
It's amazing the similarities, isn't there?
Between
business and sports.
It's huge. And you probably know this already, in terms of speaking as a woman, it's like 94% of women executives played sports growing up, and like 54% played at the collegiate level. And just to add a little shocker sticker into that one too, Dove did an amazing, they continue to do really great campaigns around women and girls and self-esteem and confidence. And this past Super Bowl, they ran an ad, and it was like 45% of girls quit sports by the age of 14. So when you add that, you put that number next to the statistics around women and executives, you're just sort of like, wait a second, what's going on here? We need to do something about it. So, as a woman, skiing, and I was also a soccer player up until my senior year of high school, it's been tremendous for me. And I encourage it, period.
What are the habits today as an entrepreneur, leader, and all the stuff you've got going on in your life, even your personal life? What are the habits that are like no miss habits for you to be successful? I don't mean necessarily from a business, like I got to make this phone call, but like. Sure.
Movement. I need to move every day. Mm-hmm. Whether I'm running or I'm walking. I live near Forest Park in the city. I try to, walk at least 6 miles if I can, or go for a run. Yes. And it's less for me now. It used to be like, and I have no shame admitting this, especially given the work that I do around people and bodies and how we show up. I worked out as someone in their 20s to stay skinny and to lose weight. Mm-hmm. I run and I work out now for my mental health, and so that I can be strong and I can show up every day and I can have longevity in my life. So movement is key.
Mm-hmm. Is it just running and walking? Do you do other stuff?
No, I do other stuff. I do Pilates, I lift weights, I do yoga. Yep. I stretch increasingly.
It's amazing how as we get older, how that starts to happen.
Oh, stretching is so wonderful. And then I read a lot. I'm in graduate school, so I do a lot of dense reading, which is really important. At the same time, I like to do some light reading too. I just read the book The Women, which was lovely.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So that's something every day that's happening.
Absolutely.
Okay. Talk about the confidence. So obviously it's how, it could be how we dress, but like, how do you build confidence? How do you help somebody that maybe not have confidence? And I did this earlier to you, and I'm asking you like 3 questions in one, but are you
It's
born
a sign
with
of
it?
a good conversation.
Right? Are you born with it, or can we grow our confidence?
I think certain people, we all have a degree of, we have temperament, right? And we're all born with certain attributes associated with our temperament. I think some people are naturally more inclined perhaps to confidence. That being said, it is absolutely a learned skill. And, I am a confident person, and I have moments where I don't feel confident because I'm a human being. In my 20s, I've alluded to some of these things growing up, with challenging parents. I'm estranged from my parents now. I was trying to, I graduated college early, and I needed to be on my own. And I will tell you, I was in survival mode, and confidence was absolutely not at the top of my priority list because it was more about, what do I need to do to take care of myself? So, at a fundamental level, for people who want to build on their confidence, I think you need to start to learn who you are. And what are things that you're holding on to that are holding you back? Are you resentful about things in life? Do you continue to have the same narratives that are holding you back? I shared, maybe offline with us before, where I didn't grow up in a home where fashion and style was a huge part of my life. I just shared all this about being an athlete. And I had divorced parents. And this idea for me in my 20s, I had this message over and over in my mind was, you don't have the pedigree to work in fashion. You can't do this. That obviously shifted. So, part of it too is like understanding what are the subconscious narratives going on and what are humming in the background. And you have to get really clear on that. It's the same process that I do with people in their closets, which is we need to remove the noise physically in order to reduce the noise mentally. So we need to get rid of the stuff that's causing you. And some of this stuff in your mind may seem like, no, this is working for me. It's safe. It's familiar. I encourage people, if you want to grow in your confidence, you need to examine that very honestly, because it just may not be helping you.
How do you do that though, right? Because it's easy for you to sit here and say it now because you've done it. But you've been in dark spots, and there was a choice. There's a fork in the road, right? It could go this other way, or it could go this way, right? How did you personally do it?
Well, you need to surround yourself with people, even if it's one person who you trust and who you love, that you can be vulnerable with, because you need to be able to release what some of those things are that could be holding you out in. The second thing I would say is spend some time with a notebook and just write some things down and be really honest with yourself. And the third is be prepared to fumble and fall. Yeah. Because the only way to build confidence is to make mistakes and to do them over and over again until they no longer are mistakes. I had a Post-it note on my computer while I was preparing for my TED Talk this summer that essentially said, practice, practice, practice over and over and over again. The only way you're going to grow in confidence, it didn't say this whole statement on the Post-it, but the only way you're going to grow your confidence is to just do things over and over again until you get good at them. And you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? You got to take the first step. Yeah.
And I can equate it to skiing as well. You have a path. There is presumably a clear path from the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain. And there are a bunch of gates in between. And if you're not the first skier, then if you're the third skier, there's a few ruts already in the tracks. And you essentially are going to follow those tracks, but not to the T, not to the point, because you could clip something too high on a turn or make a turn too late or too advanced, and it could completely, I'm trying not to use a foul word right now, it could completely just F up the entire rest of the run. And I think you have to be willing to take that risk, knowing that you've studied it, you understand it, but you have to be willing to take that risk, knowing that there's a potential that you're going to fall. Yep. Because if you don't, then you're just completely stuck in this paralysis statement, and that's how you don't grow in your confidence. Yep. And yes, it's easy for me to sit here and say this, but these are really real practical things for people. And I think we often put these sort of barriers or these mountains in front of us where we think, well, I can't achieve that. But it's like, you have to take the first step. And I think things are cliche because they're true. And that is a cliche true thing. You have to take the first step. And if you fumble the first time, you've got to get up and keep going again. Yeah, and I think the non-action gets more non-action, right? If you're laying around. And then it becomes familiar, right? It's like, I have ambitious goals for myself in life because I want to live life to the fullest, and I have ambitious goals in my business. And I get caught in the trap sometimes where it's like, well, I'm really tired. It's been a long day. I've been working my butt off. I want to go home and like sit down and like binge this Netflix show. Yeah. And like sometimes that's okay. We just need a little bit of like freedom to do the things that we need to do. But like when that becomes a really easy habit over and over again, we're now wiring our brains to think like, this is me making healthy choices to do positive things for myself. But actually it's holding me back from these bigger goals. So I need to make uncomfortable decisions right now in order to make that change happen.
So is that when you said earlier the journal? I'm a big proponent of journals, and so do you have like a certain time every week or like every morning, or is it like what's that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not consistent with it daily. Yeah. So if I'm in a hurry, if I'm in a rush, or I've got a lot going on, or I've made excuses for myself to get the day going, because I work at the pleasure of my clients, and boundaries are important in any aspect of life. When the phone starts ringing at 7:30 in the morning, and I want to address my clients, I'm enthusiastic about it. Sometimes I don't sit and journal, but other days, if it's just something short, I'll pull it out and I'll write down my gratitude list. And if I don't even have time to think about that, I'm grateful for the fact that now my heat is turning on because it's cold in the mornings, which is an important thing to be grateful for. Sure. Gratitude, reflection doesn't need to be these grand gestures. It can actually be like as simple as my cat snuggled me last night and it felt great. The other part of that, if I can't think and my mind is already going and I'm like, I'm not here to be grateful right now. Right. I'm grateful that I'm grateful that I have work coming in. What I will do is I'll do my really quick daily vitamins and I'll say like, Laura, you are beautiful, brilliant, and bright, and those are my vitamin B's, and on with the day. I love it. And so those are really powerful things, just like the way that you show up can influence how you think and how you feel. The way we speak to ourselves does the same thing too. And thankfully there is very much increasing research around this, which I am delighted to see because it is a real thing.
Yeah. My kids are, they're now 19, 17, 14, and 10. So they've been hearing this their whole lives. But it's like, I remember, I don't know why, sometimes you have those moments you just remember for your whole life. One of my kids being real little, and like they said, they can't put their seatbelt on in the back, right? And I remember looking back and saying, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. Right. And for some reason that just stuck with me, and it's something I've always done with the kids, right? I didn't create that saying, obviously. I don't know who said that, but I think it was maybe Henry Ford, maybe. But that's so true, isn't it? When you think about, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't.
100%. And I do believe that is attributed to Henry Ford. I had a job in college where I was interning for a family that I babysat for. And he actually, a very small sort of like family office firm that he ran out of his home. And on the side, he was also a jazz musician. And my job that summer was to research potential venues for him and his band to play music in the tri-state area in New York. And I'm sitting there and I'm wondering like, what does this guy just like call these places up and like ask if he and his band can perform? Like, don't that's not how this works. Like they get, you get called because, you put your music out there and you get invited to show up. And that was when I had this aha moment, and I had this amazing conversation with him, which is essentially what you're saying. And he's like, Laura, you create the life that you want. You get to pick and choose. There's all these constructs, there's all these walls that are put up, and some of them are there to protect us, others are not. And part of it is to, create establishment and communities and cultures, and environments and workplaces. But know this, you have a voice and you get to make the life that you want. And that for me was such an extraordinary moment because, in this path of mine where I was sort of losing out on parental support to help me thrive, I was finding it in other places, which is a huge part of why I'm successful today. And that for me has always stuck with me. And I'm like, everybody is capable of this. You just have to get out of your head. And easier said than done, 100%. But that's where the discipline and the consistency of it and the fumbles, you're going to have a lot of fumbles. And that's what keeps people preventing themselves from moving forward.
Yeah.
But like, you have to work through that.
Yeah.
I have an expression. Can I use another curse word?
You
It's
can
a
use
bad
any one
one.
you want.
I say to people, whether we're going through, any sort of, emotional or mental, psychological pain, where I talk to friends, just about supporting them and things that are going on in their lives. And this applies, I think, across the board. You have to walk through the shit to get out of the shit.
That's right.
Period.
Yep.
And that is one of my mantras.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I had a guy when I was early on as a young financial advisor, and he was super successful. And the guy's like, you got to eat the shit sandwich. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're going to have to do things in your day you don't want to do. He's like, you can savor the shit sandwich all day long, or you can just freaking eat it and get it over with,
Just
right?
get it over with.
All right. So then that's why, to this day, I still focus 90 every morning. I spend 90 minutes focused on the things I got to do to win the day. Once that's over, now I can go let the day happen and go to my meetings, let emails come in and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
But you got to do the stuff that you don't want to do. And most successful people, they don't want to do it, but they do it.
Well, I think it teaches you a lot about who you are, and it also teaches you a lot about people as well. When you realize that, like, we all have to do the shit, and if you want to come out of it, then you need to go through it, not around it or avoid it.
Yeah.
And, speaking from, to young people a lot, I do a lot of speaking at, colleges and some high schools in some cases too, around, what does it mean to show up, and what does confidence look like? And, I don't use shit around, kids, obviously. But in other words, I will say to them, I'm like, this doesn't just get handed to you. You have to work for it. And this goes back to my skiing analogy, as we know, with any sort of, what you learn in sports is like, you have to work for it.
Yeah.
And you have to start at the fundamentals. And from there you can build and keep going, but it doesn't just get handed to you.
Yeah.
And it looks easy, right? I think Roger Federer said, this isn't verbatim, but there's some quote where he's like, I'm so sick of people who are like, saying, oh, you make it look so easy. And he's like, if only you knew like the blood, sweat, and tears that went into this for years. And we have to, I think, remind ourselves, all of us, that when we look around at the people around us, it doesn't just happen.
No.
It doesn't just come easily. There are stories, there are experiences. These are learned experiences. And I really value that a lot. And that has allowed me to have a lot of compassion when I work with people one-on-one.
Yeah. The Federer thing, I thought you were going to go down another quote. One of my favorite ones is, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but it was something like, and again, I'm going to butcher it, but it was like he won 83% of his matches or something like that. Have you seen this?
Well, I watched the documentary, which was great.
I don't know where I even
Maybe
read
it was from
but
there.
it was like 83% of his matches he's won, but he's only won like 54% of his points. So you think about like it's like, oh, you've won all these Grand Slams. Yeah, but you don't understand the freaking grind of beating that guy by 1 or 2 points.
Absolutely.
Just to win 85% of the matches.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that's what people don't understand. Like it was a
Life is
grind.
hard. Life is hard. And the gift of life, there are many, but the gift of life is the opportunity to have the hard stuff thrown at you.
Yeah.
When the days where I'm like, I'm exhausted, and this is not me encouraging burnout culture. Let me just be clear by saying that. But the days that I'm tired, I'm just like, I'm so grateful I'm tired. That means that like I have opportunity and I'm doing really extraordinary things. So like, go do what you need to do to rest, go recover, go for a walk, go hang out with my husband, Mark, go snuggle my cat. Like I said, go do the things that you need to do and then get back to it.
Yep, that's right. So the word choice for me is, I don't know why, but it's probably one of my favorite words, because everything we're talking about is a choice, right? You can choose to get up and be a victor. You can choose to stay in bed and be a victim, right? And so when you hear the word choice, what comes to mind for you?
Intention is another word that I would tether to the word choice. I think just to elaborate on what you're saying, yes, I can choose to, repeat this strategy that I have for my business. This is where I'm going in this direction because that's a great open-ended question again. But I can choose to continue to do the same thing over and over again and think, oh, this is my bread and butter. Everything's working out for me. I'm just going to continue to service clients, which is great, by the way. Or I'm going to go and I'm going to push harder on something that I want to do. And that is I'm going to go back to graduate school. Yeah. I'm going to go and speak and put myself in uncomfortable situations. When I talk to a lot of people about public speaking, of course, it's like, I think the number one fear that we human beings have. And people are like, you're so confident when you walk out on the stage. Well, I'm like, no, I get nervous because I care before. But I choose to do this thing so that I can put myself in uncomfortable growth situations because I want to live my life to the fullest based on, again, sharing a little bit about growing up, I'm going to say this with humility, but I'm fired up, so it may not come off that way. But like, I've always felt like I had something special in me, that I had something to share. And I do not want to choose to let that go. Yep. I want to choose to let that shine. So that's where choice applies to me.
Yeah. I love that. And you're leading me right in. I wrote it down, and then you said something like about the walking on stage. And somebody just said this, somebody that works for us, actually. They're like, I had no idea the anxiety you dealt with, right? They see me walk down the hall like this confident person, but yet I was very vulnerable on a recent podcast about my anxiety growing up and even in my young adult life, and actually speaking on stage in front of like 4,000 people one time. And I literally was getting sick, like vomiting, right? Literally getting sick. And they're like starting to introduce me, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to walk out on stage. And I just got up there. They had the Eminem "Lose Yourself" song playing. It's like, oh my God, here we go. And I get on stage and I did well, but people saw that part, right? They didn't see the Brett that, a minute and a half before that was literally in the bathroom, like, what in the hell is happening, and what am I going to do, right? And so, but it leads me to this point of I call it your comfort zone callus. So my comfort zone was this big, and then I stepped on stage, it got a little bigger, right? And it's like my golf. I get callus on your hands from doing yard work or golfing or whatever people get callus for. We have to step outside of our comfort zone, and then it gets bigger, and then it gets bigger, right? And so when you hear that, tell me more.
Well, I think that goes back to the conversation we were having about growing your confidence, and you've got to step into something for the first time and then choose to step into, the next place that you're walking into in that same domain. And that's where it allows you, I think, to fumble and to grow. I think it's important that we share our vulnerabilities. I think it humanizes all of us and it makes us important. At the same time, I think it's also important that we show up for ourselves and we show up for other people, because that's where the calluses get really hard and really good. And it's like there's a shift that starts to happen. I think Scott Galloway, from the public speaking perspective, he does a lot of keynotes. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I know the name,
but I don't know him.
He's an NYU professor. He talks a lot about branding. He does a lot of public speaking.
Book, I think.
Okay, yes. He's got Algebra of Wealth is his most recent one, I believe. And he's talked about how he's like, every few hundred speech, I'm literally in the back room barfing right now. And he's like, I don't know what happens, but it just comes over me. And I think, it's telling about all of us, because again, we are humans. And what great opportunity we have to go vomit in the bathroom before we walk on a stage, so that we can grow in whatever it is that we want to grow in. Yeah. For me, with the TED Talk in particular, I love that you just shared that about, this callus growing. I was backstage and I was definitely panicked. I was very nervous. There's no confidence monitor. I have no notes. This is 15 minutes of fully memorized speech that is like all about brevity, right? Every word counts. Wow. No ums, no pauses, no let me ponder on this. You just have to nail it. This is the TED rule. Okay. Absolutely. So it's not like, and they're TED for a reason. They have standards. So anyway, I was backstage. There were some singers that went on before me, and I actually was backstage. I was dancing. I was moving. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Like, the universe is looking out for me right now, because I'm just vibing with this moment to just release whatever jitters are in me right now. And this was such an important moment for me, because as I walked out on the stage, I had to walk from, stage right and onto this little red dot, which is the TED way. And as I thought, right before I walked out, I thought, you know what? I didn't think about what I was going to do from the curtain to the carpet point. I had to walk, but what else was I gonna do? And it was in that moment I thought, you're gonna turn your head and you're gonna look right at the audience and you're gonna wave at them and you're gonna smile. Don't walk head down to that little red dot. Set the tone immediately, not just for them, do it for you. Yeah. And as soon as I turned my head and I looked out at the crowd and I waved, I thought, this is exactly where I wanna be right now. This is exactly what I want to be doing. And people don't know that until they do things, not just public speaking, but with anything. You won't know until you do it. And it may not feel right the first time, but it may feel right in your heart. So just do it again, and then it will grow. And that's the gift, I think, of another gift of life, I'll say.
But that confidence was contagious for yourself.
Oh, it was tremendous. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I know my lines. I spent so much time practicing, because I was listening to my Post-it note.
Love that. So you see these stickers right here, F greater than P. So that's our firm's mission and my personal mission, and plug my journal. Great. It's for sale on Amazon.
I'll have to get one. I need a new one so I can write all my gratitude down.
We'll give you one. It's got a gratitude section in it. Every single day you got to write it down. Every day you got to write your goals down. You got to write down what you're grateful for. It's all sorts of stuff.
And your daily vitamins. But you can accredit LKS to that one.
I heard Jesse Itzler say that too. I don't know who Al.
I do know who Jesse is.
Yeah, so he talks about that.
I'm a big fan of his wife, too.
Yes, Sarah Blakely.
Yes, that's right.
Got a new company she started.
Sneaks. We could have a whole other podcast on that topic.
Absolutely. So Jesse, I hired him as a coach. So I'm in a little group session. He's a business coach, so he's phenomenal. But so future greater than your past. That's what it stands for. This F greater than P. That's our mission, my personal mission. When you hear achieving a future greater than your past, what comes to mind for you?
Achieving a future greater than your past. That's a deep question. That's a good one. It means being willing to let go. That's what it means to me.
Yeah.
Just let go of the stuff. Let go of the narratives. Let go of a past identity. Let go of history that's no longer serving you.
Yeah.
Let go of habits that aren't healthy. And let go and create something new and not be afraid of it. Yeah. Ultimately, because in order to carve out something new, you've got to be able to let go of the past. There's just not enough room.
I don't know why in the hell I'm thinking this way, but when you say that let go, I'm seeing two boats and somebody's holding a rope, holding them together, and it's like literally letting go, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's that easy, actually.
And I think the achieving your future greater than your past, I say this a lot, is it doesn't mean your past is bad, right?
No.
But like, so we had two different pasts. I grew up, I'm close to my parents, right? And you've said you're not. But it's yet what you choose, right, to do and how you've chosen to let go.
Right.
And so somebody that's struggling right now, what advice would you give to let go of that rope?
Paint a picture for what you want it to be. And then go do small things every single day to work towards that.
I love that. It was that easy, you said.
It takes time.
Yeah.
But it becomes easy. Yep. Absolutely.
I love it. We're getting to deep thinking here. Now we're gonna lighten the mood a little bit. Closets. You get to see a lot of closets.
That's pretty deep thinking, actually.
So you walk into somebody's closet. How should our closet feel? Right? Because that starts your day. It's one of the first places you go, right?
Yes. So, think about your environments that you're in. Your environments affect how you feel, how you think, how you perform, how you show up, how you are not doing some of these things either. And so the closet is the same space. I talk a lot about this. Closets are probably one of the most vulnerable spaces in our lives. You get naked in your closet. You look at yourself in the mirror in your closet. In some closets, you're changing your clothes. You're criticizing yourself in your closet. Old habits, old thoughts are coming up in your closet. You're in a rush in your closet. The list goes on and on. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. And you start your day often in your closet. And it's one of the first things you do. And I talk a lot about how, getting dressed is like brushing your teeth. And it's such a ubiquitous thing that we don't even think about it sometimes. And we go into autopilot mode. But you need to make sure that you've got organization in your closet set up. And I'm not talking about a perfectly curated, beautifully built out closet here with the perfect drawer and shelf and rack for all the things that you need. I mean, just having self-respect and putting your clothes on hangers, folding your clothes when you're done wearing them, and making sure that, if you've got 2 socks to put on your feet, that they match each other. You don't have any missing socks or things don't have holes in them. So it is a level of self-respect and care in your environment. And that's where it can really help you set your day up for success. And when I do closet editing with clients, like I shared before, the first thing we do is we go in and we remove the things that no longer serve you. They don't fit, they've got holes, they've got tears. If they don't fit, can they be altered? If not, can they go to a new home? Is it relevant and modern? I am not a trend-driven stylist. This is all about, is it relevant to your lifestyle today, and will it hopefully be tomorrow? And does it fit into the things that you need? What boxes do we need to check? Because not everybody needs a white button-up shirt. Not everybody needs a blazer. Not everybody needs a pair of high heels. I mean, you can fill in that list. It's so personalized for people. And we just need to understand what is there to serve you, what is not there to serve you, what can we get rid of, and how can we hone in on those specifics before you build from there.
It is funny because we have 4 kids, so there's lots of laundry, and so it's like that's one of my wife and I's things.
Sure.
It's like you set them on the island in our kitchen. That'd be bad. And set them on the island in our closet. It's like, but put them away fast because when you walk in and there's that clutter, it just doesn't feel great.
It doesn't feel great. And before I write a big paper in school or before I give a big talk where I'm maybe updating my presentation, I clean my office. I tidy things up. Because if I don't, then it leaves things unresolved.
Right.
And it just creates a lot of fuss, a lot of noise. So it is important to put your clothes away. Admittedly, some days, I don't put my pants away. I just toss them over the chair. That's okay. Just don't let it accumulate.
Yeah. Like people's treadmills can accumulate for the holding clothes, right? The biggest
No comment.
The biggest thing I have to worry about going into my closet is my 19 and 17-year-old. Did they take my dang piece of clothing out of my closet? And I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad that my 19 and 17-year-old want to wear my stuff. Am I that bad of a dresser, or am I that good of a dresser?
That's a compliment. That's a compliment. Teenagers are really harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear a lot I tell my clients, I'm like, if you've got a 15 to 19-year-old, maybe don't listen to what they're saying about how you're showing up right now. Their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. That's not an insult. That's just a reality.
It's facts.
But maybe that's a compliment, It's not like you're going to put a lockbox on your closet. No. So I don't have kids, so I can't offer much parenting advice in terms of, how to manage.
But my style advice is I can
do that. I can do that. Yeah.
So I get 2 final questions for you. Fears. The fears we've put in our mind, how many of the fears have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
I don't know that I can count on a hand or anything like that, but I will say some things come true. A lot of things don't.
Yeah.
And this goes back to, again, what we were talking about before in terms of like, what is the narrative? What are you telling yourself? How are you speaking to yourself? I think it's important to have a certain level of preparedness and awareness, applied to all aspects of life and work, personal, business, all the things. And I just want to encourage people to know that like sometimes we are holding ourselves back because of fear, and it is much larger than it is. So yeah, maybe this goes to like some things are that simple. Yeah. Just like try to simplify it down. Yeah.
I think the point is there's people that are fearful and sometimes that fear holds them back. Right?
I'm guilty of it. I've been there for sure. I became an entrepreneur 7 years ago, and it was the scariest thing for me because, I admittedly, of course, had the support of my husband to be able to do this, to step into something, where I had no financial income coming in. And we had the support at home in order for me to do it. But I started working when, I actually took up my brother's paper route. I think I was like 13 at West Point and have always worked. I graduated college early. I was working a full-time job at the time. I didn't have any family support necessarily. And so for me, it was a really scary thing. And I was terrified. Even though I had the financial support of my husband to do this thing, mentally, I just was so shaken up about it. And I finally did it and was like, well, that wasn't that bad.
Yeah. When the hell did I do that earlier?
Like, what? And not everybody's in that situation.
You, right?
Yes, exactly. But I think you can apply that to a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you tell yourself? So if we go the 10 years ago person, what would you tell yourself?
Just like walk through this shit faster.
Yeah.
Just like keep going.
Take the leap.
Yeah, just go.
Yeah.
Just like, make it your fastest
run.
Walk
through the shit faster. God dang it, just go.
Yeah, just go.
Like you're in a downhill slalom.
Exactly.
Just
like get your best time.
Harvard, how's Harvard?
It's hard, as it should be.
Yeah.
It's an amazing challenge. It's a really beautiful gift.
Good for you. Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to Sacred Heart University in Connecticut. I studied media and digital culture. I graduated in 2009, and this was when social media was becoming something, and it was a really interesting time to learn. And then I have another master's degree from the University of Alabama, so Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
I don't know how many people are going to like that one.
My oldest goes to Mizzou. We play Roll Tide this Saturday.
Oh, well,
so
let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
And studied business communications and decided, to further advance myself. My husband's like, no more degrees, please.
We're
done. Do what I'm here to encourage you always, but like, let's just hope this is we're going to tie this one up now.
That's awesome. Well, Laura Sawyier, it's been awesome having you on the Circuit of Success. You brought a lot of energy, great stories, and a great message. And thankful for Kristen introducing the two of us. And again, thanks for being here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Brett.